Hey, everybody. It is time. It is Tuesday. It is time for the Horror Syndicate Discourse. I almost said the wrong name. We are going to do something very fun, I think. We're going to rank the Nightmare on I always say it wrong, the Elm Street films, A Nightmare on Elm Street 1 through remake. I think you probably can guess what the number one movie is going to be. But oddly enough, I've seen people rank the third movie as the number one movie. So we're going to start with the ninth overall and work our way down. Unfortunately, we're without Seth tonight, but at least we'll all be able to get a chance to talk since he's so chatty all the time. Yeah, so tonight, of course, we've got Keith with us back in the horror room. Or is it collector's room or horror room?
It's an office. That's what I call it. It's a mess. That's what it is. It's a mess.
Okay, yeah, you know what? Same here. And then Nate is in a car somewhere.
Yeah,
so,
I'm in the.
We will not disclose his location.
I am in the school bus from part 2.
Oh, you got the body glove sticker there.
Slow down. Yeah, I need. Yeah.
Which one are you? The beginning or the end?
I'm Robert, not the other guy that just looks back at Mark weirdly.
So we've got some. Yeah, go ahead and leave your rankings in the comments, and we'll throw them up on the screen. I changed to this because you can read the comments better than the other version. 1 New Nightmare, 3, 5. Then I don't care really.
Wow.
No Dream Master. That's terrible. Because Lisa Costa says 4 is great. Hell yeah, it is. But the remake is not the bottom by any means. Well, we'll see which one is the actual bottom on our list, because that's going to be our number one. Is there anything we want to say before we get started in doing the list here?
Yeah, this list was compiled from all 5 of us, voted in order and ranked, so they fall in order as the collective. And oddly enough, it's my list, it's my rankings, except for the bottom 2 are swapped. So I was like, wow, this is my list until I got to the bottom 2. Okay, that's off. But but I'm happy with it, of course.
Luke Hardman says 3 is his number one. I think it's a fair list for the most part.
I do. Yeah.
I think the number 9 movie is a little criminally placed. It should be at least number 2.
I had to change mine around
with yeah, I rewatched them all. Just like the Friday the 13th movies, I rewatched them all the last couple of weeks and kind of re-ranked them. I really noticed that for some reason, and I think a lot of people do it, they put 2 way down on the list, and I'm talking in the bad area, which I think 2 is really good. And they're like, well, it deviates from the series. It doesn't follow Nancy. Who cares? Mark Patton gives a great performance. Kim Myers gives a great performance. They've got great characters. It's a good movie, and I like the possession angle. I love one of my favorite things when I was a kid was not even using a glove, but tying popsicle sticks to my fingers because the knives came out of Jesse's hand. So I thought that was really cool. So two's underrated in my opinion.
Yes.
But let's see. I'm gonna get to the comments before we go. Daddy Daytona says probably 1, 2, New Nightmare, 3, 4, 6, remake, 5. Yeah, we're including Freddy versus Jason, for sure. Yeah. I think we kind of determined that it was part of the series when we did the Friday the 13th shows, right? More of an Elm Street movie.
It's definitely more of a Freddy movie.
I'm going to go against popular opinion, and I think 6 is really good. I love Freddy's Dead. I'm just saying. I love it. Dream Warriors, New Nightmare, OG. Really? Number 3. Okay. Well, our number 9. So we're going to go in reverse order, so you can feel the tension building when you get to the, the number 1 spot is Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. Okay, I do. I didn't know if I had the poster on the wall or not. I had to look. So that's number 9. Personally, I don't like where it's placed. I like Freddy's Dead quite a bit. Nate, I know you have a lot of disdain because of the backstory, and I
Oh,
mean,
it's that's like I said, that's switched. Mine, I actually have it at 8 on my list. That's the difference. I don't hate this movie. I don't hate any of them. I don't hate a lot of movies at all.
right?
I saw Freddy's Dead in the theater and I enjoyed it, and I still do. Yeah, my big thing is, it turned into it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon, and I just
Well,
if
he
I have to look
literally
at the
pushes
whole
the things
yeah
across the
yeah,
It,
and
it literally is
I
a
love
cartoon.
Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
but I don't love Freddy as a Looney Tunes character, and I think that's what it is. It pushes it so far that way. And I understand at that point there was no going back. They had already kind of embraced that kind of where they were going. But yeah, the origin thing where they're like, hey, let's just all of a sudden say Freddy lived in the suburbs in 1428 and had a wife and a kid, and it's like that's not who Fred was. No, that's not reality. No, and so so it was like one of those bummers where it's like I finally get the origin story, and it's a bullshit origin story. Okay, so but it's fun. It's a fun movie, but at the same time, Freddy shows up as a witch, as Margaret Hamilton right away. It's like,
It's a twister. Yeah.
and I was kind of upset that they didn't carry on from part 5. None of the characters carried on,
Yeah.
and it was like, that's why for me, Freddy's Dead doesn't belong in the original series. I think the original storyline series to me ends at Dream Child, and everything after it is an additional what if spinoff type standalone film.
Well, we also get into the area where I don't know if this is better view for everybody if they want to see our pretty faces, but there's only 3 of us. But we also get into that area like Freddy versus Jason, and like after Jason takes Manhattan, they're kind of one-off, single-serving movies, and that's kind of what Freddy's Dead is. I make the joke all the time. It's canon. It's not. It's not even the canon. The canon ends after part 5. Lisa Wilcox's story or Alice's story is told. It's done. Everything else after that is a single-serving movie, in my opinion. So just like the Friday the 13th series, I don't like this view. But you can't see my quotes. I put my hands up, and all you can see is my fat face. So,
Freddy's.
yeah, that's what do you got, Keith?
I was just gonna say, I mean, like, it's not a great movie. It's a fun movie, and it's
Marco Carlson says it's the kid's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. There's things in it I like, but as a movie as a whole, like I don't like it at all. Like I like the whole Alice Cooper like father beating Freddy scene, and then I mean, like Nathan said, the whole family thing's kind of stupid. But I liked the whole glasses and dream demon like canon. It's still a cool concept.
As soon as Lisa puts on the Maggie.
It was such a damn
Catherine.
ripoff too, man. Sitting in the theater, and I'm like, why is this 3D? I got 3D glasses. Why is it? And it's like, wait till she puts them on. Like, what are you talking about? Did y'all?
Right.
How? Yeah, but I mean, there are things I like about. I mean, I really enjoyed Carlos's death scene. I think it's hilarious with
It's
the
good, yeah.
chalkboard
Well,
and dropping the
Spencer's.
nails.
Yeah, Spencer's is good too, I think.
I enjoyed.
No?
What? It's
You don't like
it's
Spencer?
okay.
Hey, Spence, let's trip
It's
out.
okay. Leslie Dean, Leslie Dean's great in the movie.
Yeah.
Yvette Koto is great in it.
So is Lisa Zane.
Yeah, Lisa's. I don't know. She's fine. She's good looking.
I
You
love her.
find that way, but
I love her.
again, we got more of the 3D bullshit. Or, all the gags they have to do for that.
So, you don't like the Dream Demon angle, I'm guessing, right? This is a question from one of the viewers.
I don't like the Dream Demon thing.
I'm not a fan of it either, but
no, I mean I get it. Like they search for the worst. Like that's the thing. They search for the worst part person possible to be their, I don't know, champion or whatever the hell he's supposed to be. But that's not a bad concept. I don't like the actual Dream Demon. I think it's silly. But the whole mythology about that, I also remember liking the scene where he's talking to Yaphet's character. I can't remember what his name is. Where he's like, first they tried burning
Doc.
me and cutting hands off. Doc. Then they tried holy water. All that stuff.
I love that
That's
scene.
a fun scene. Yeah, it's a fun scene.
Yeah.
And I like. I mean, it embraces the Looney Tunes thing, which is fine. I don't hate the movie. In fact, I put this one at number 8 because I asked myself if I have to watch Freddy's Dead or what's in spot 8, which one do I want to watch? I would rather watch Freddy's Dead than the one we got in spot 8.
Yeah.
Just because I enjoy this movie far more than that. Even though it's not exactly the Freddy that in the Nightmare movies that I liked or what made me a fan, it's still an enjoyable movie. It's still Robert. It's still Robert doing Freddy, and it's still, it may not be. And I mean, the other knock is the makeup just looks like a rubber mask to me. It doesn't look very good.
It's the worst makeup in all of the movies, in my opinion.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of stuff that I dislike, so that's why it's low. But it's not at my bottom because it is enjoyable. I'd rather watch it than our spot 8.
I think I had it at 7. And let's go ahead and we were getting a lot of comments in about Dream Demons, and Seth is watching with us. Seth, we wish you were here because we know you'd be chatting it up. Freddy's Dead taught me I can smoke and Jay and trip balls versus shooting acid in my eye.
That's all good stuff.
Friday at 3 over Freddy's Dead. Yeah. I like this comment from Luke. Our new Nightmare blew my 14-year-old mind with how meta. Yeah, me too. When I rented that, I will get to that one, but when I rented that, I was like, what the fuck? It was so good. But let's move on to number 8. And number 8 is Sperm Demons. Number 8 is Freddy vs. Jason. Thank you, Andre. Sperm Demons. Freddy vs. Jason is our number 8 movie, and I think I may have ranked this at number 9. I know Freddy's Dead was 7 for me. This movie just gets worse with age. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a while because it's not number 8 on my list, but I haven't seen it in a while. But it's also when I watch it, I have nostalgia for it because of my age. Like I grew up watching that movie.
You were like 7 years old when that one came out.
I think I had theaters. I could be wrong, but I know we had it, and I watched the living hell out of it.
Yeah, I saw it opening night. I was super stoked. Like we said during the Friday the 13th show, Nate and I had been waiting for that for 15 years, and that's what we got. There's some good stuff. We don't really need to go too deep in this one, but
yeah, I mean we've been waiting for it, so I was excited for that, and I had fun with it for that reason. It was cool, it was exciting. So it's one of those things where you're like, yay. Then you watch it a couple more times, like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward to the fight scene, and then years later, you're like, they're not even the fight scenes really good.
Let's just watch the credits.
And that's what I said. Like after a while, I don't like watching it. There's not a lot there that I enjoy. So I'm far rather watch Freddy's Dead than this movie.
Yeah.
I will say it has some of the best Krueger makeup. I love his
Mark.
look.
Yeah. Well, his look was so all over the place too, which was terrible. God, I hated the Survivor girl in Freddy vs. Jason. I don't hate Monica Keena. I hated her performance in that movie, though.
Yeah, she's terrible, and I had a big crush on Monica.
Me too.
And before this,
as Jared would say, big tracts of land.
Well, I saw her on Dawson's Creek, and I saw her in Ripe, and she did that Snow White movie with Sigourney Weaver, and she was on Undeclared before this. So yeah, I was big. I really liked, and actually, my comic book. If I could have cast anybody as my lead in that movie, it would have been her. And I told her that when I met her. She said, "I'm ready to go. Let's do it. It's like, you're not 19 anymore. It's like,
Right.
but yeah, I love Monica, but her character, her performance is so bad, and I don't really think it's her fault, because she's better than that. A lot of people in this movie are better than they come off in that movie.
Yeah, she was actually in a really bad movie, the 2010-2009 remake of Night of the Demons, but she was like the standout in that movie, which maybe it's the movie. All right, let's move on to number 7, which I'm sure people are going to be disappointed, and that's fine. I'm just going to say this one's growing on me. It's the remake. It's not great. It's not what I wanted. I honestly never wanted a remake of The Nightmare on Elm Street, but it is what it is, and it's growing on me. What about you guys?
It has a lot of, it's a 50-50. Like, it has a lot of good stuff, but then it has a lot of, like, why is this like this? Because, like, a lot of the, like, we talked about it a little bit on another show, I think, but, like, I like all of the background information. Like, we get the scene of the parents chasing Krueger to the boiler room and them arguing over if they should kill him or not, and then I like the whole twist of, did the kids frame an innocent man, or is he actually guilty? Like, I liked all that stuff.
I think you're right. It's got a lot of good stuff, but a lot of bad stuff equally. Like and a lot of the bad stuff just feels like stuff that may have been forced on them by the studio or whatever. Because, like, I don't dislike Jackie Earle Haley's performance at all. I think he's fantastic. I think the makeup just looks bad, and the movie itself is not great. But he has some, like, really great dialogue in the film, like the line about the brain keeps, like, is still aware or whatever after you've been killed, your heart stops or whatever it was, and we got like 10 more seconds to play, or 10 more minutes, whatever it was. I can't remember the line, and then why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet, and things like. He's got some really cool lines. And I like some of the dream sequences. As someone mentioned, the micro napping is a great idea and a great effect. And I really also think that Kyle Gallner is an underrated performer. I think he's actually really good in the movie.
Is that the main male?
He's the main male lead in the movie. Him. He was great in Red State. He's great. I've enjoyed him in pretty much everything I saw him in. I think he's really good in Nightmare. I think that's where it threw off, because he really, to me, is the lead character in the movie, because he's dragging Nancy around. Nancy's really lethargic. Where that's another place where they messed up. And Rooney Mara gets a lot of shit, but that's how the character was written, to be distant and kind of. Like, people talk about how terrible she is. I mean, Rooney obviously is a talented actress. She's proved it in Carol and Girl with a Dragon Tattoo and all that. I just think that's how the character was written on the page.
She plays it like a. I mean, whenever I watch it, I don't see anything wrong with her performance. Like I always say, this movie is made for Hot Topic teens. Like, it's that kind of youth that they're calling to. But I think the other problem is when people went and saw it, they were expecting MTV Freddy. A lot of people forget, like, Freddy is a child molester, and he's super, like, disgusting and serious. And this movie's, like, straight serious. He doesn't really do a lot of joking, or if he does, it's very dark humor.
And you gotta admit that opening scene is with what's his name, Kellen Lutz, is really damn good, because you see him struggling with the knife, and that's a pretty damn good scene.
I love that, because Freddy's, like, pissed off in this movie. Like, he's got aggression, like that scene where you talk about, where he's got the knife on him, and, like, he's struggling to fight him. And what's he say? He says something to him, like,
I can't
before
remember.
He stabs him. But it's like, it's not a poorly made movie. It's just it's not what Nightmare on Elm Street fans were expecting, because it takes out all the fun and humor. Because even the original movie had moments of fun and innocence with, I had a hard on when I woke up this morning, and the
4 letters of my name, Rod.
Yeah, the cassette tapes and all that. They don't have any of that in this movie, because from the very get-go, they're all, like, depressed, and don't really hang out. And
well, they don't really know each other, though. They were separated, right, because of this whole incident.
And the first time we see them, they're, like, at a funeral together,
right.
Like, and it's like, from the get-go, dark and depressing, and like you said, the emo nightmare movie or the Hot Topic email or nightmare movie, where it's kind of and the other big problem is they shoehorn all these kind of moments from the original movie where they try to replicate it, but it doesn't. Like I was talking to somebody yesterday about, there's no motivation for them to happen. Like when Nancy sees Tina in the hallway in the body bag in the first movie, it's to get her out of the classroom and into the basement. Whereas in the new one, it's like she's just being dragged along through the hallways, and there she appears and just kind of, and then that's it. It's like they just threw that in there. When he comes to the wall in the original to get Nancy, he stops because she wakes up, puts the crucifix on the wall. He can't get to her, so he goes back to Tina. But in the new one, like she's just like studying or something. He comes out and then he goes back, and it's like there was no motivation or reason. They were just there to, we've got to put that scene in there because it's iconic, and they don't work organically in the remake, and they're just not as well executed. But there are some really cool moments in it that I do enjoy. But so that, to me, it ranks it's number 7 on my list, where it is on our list, because I think it's a better film overall than Freddy versus Jason
It is.
And Freddy's Dead.
It isn't.
Luke
asked, do you guys prefer Child Killer or Molester? Both are terrible, but as a character, I prefer Killer. I do too. Child Molester is super dark.
Well, my thing on that,
just 5 yards from the goal line.
Well, my thing is, most serial killers are sexual crimes anyway, and most child killers do sexually molest the children that they kill. I mean, there's very few that don't. And to me, Freddy was supposed to be that way. They just took it down because of the whole McMartin trial at the time. But I always knew he was. And even in part 5 in the newspaper, it says child molester Freddy Krueger when she's looking at an old newspaper. So that to me is one and it always weirded me out, mostly when people were upset for the remake because of that, because they were fine with him butchering 5-year-olds, but the molestation, oh no, that's crossing the line. So you're fine with him killing 5-year-olds? That he's still your hero now. He's still cool. Like this guy, that's the thing. Like, you're not supposed to like Freddy. You're not supposed to be rooting for him and not supposed to be cheering. Wes Craven wanted you to see a wicked, vile human being, not he didn't want you cosplaying at him. He didn't want him on children's pajamas. All you do is read his part 3 script, and it's dark. It's darker than the first movie. And if you read like New Nightmare, that scene where Heather is watching the crowd chant at the talk show for Robert and everybody's dressed like Freddy, that was Wes's commentary on that's sick. That's a nightmare to me that these people are so obsessed with Freddy over Nancy. That's an unfortunate thing. People should have found a hero in Nancy rather than Freddy Krueger.
And that's what I did. Nancy was always my hero. And there's a lot of great comments coming up, and I'm sorry I don't have time to read them all, but we're throwing them up on the screen so everybody can.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll say what Devin's saying, like that ending scene. I think I talked about it last time we talked about, like, that's a great fucking scene. I love that whole ending where they finally, like, all the realization sinks into their head. Like, you see what that kind of thing does to a person. Like, there's more than him just being a molester in that movie. Like, there's a message to it about like what it does to someone's psyche.
Well, the other problem with the remake is, why the boiler room? Why the glove?
Yeah.
Why, if he wasn't a child murderer and he didn't have that glove and he wasn't killing children back then, why does he have that glove? And why is he seeing them? Why are they seeing them in the boiler room? Like, he didn't work in a boiler room in the remake. Like, and he didn't die in the boiler room either. It's like some abandoned homes or buildings or something. So
yeah.
It doesn't, just like they tried to fit Freddy's iconic stuff into this movie, but they didn't support it. They didn't.
Well, I mean, I guess with this, I could kind of see like they're seeing him in Wait, yeah, that's right. They see him in a boiler room, but he lived in like he lived in the boiler room of the school, didn't he? It's still a boiler room, isn't it?
Maybe, I don't know, but it's not. It's not the boiler room they're seeing in their
Yeah, it's
dreams.
not like fucking crazy pipe labyrinth.
Well, yeah, like the glove. Like, why does he have a glove? Because he wasn't murdering these children. Maybe he was working himself up to it. Because a lot of times that's how it happens. They get caught. A lot of murders like that happen. Someone get caught and they freak out and they end up having to cover up their tracks and murder them. So maybe he was working on murdering these kids eventually, but then he got exposed.
Yeah, and again, that could be stuff that, like you said, the studio threw in, or it was stuff in the script, and the studio didn't want to cover that amount of time in the movie.
Yeah. Just for anybody who's just joining, there is a original script breakdown on the original third movie on thehorsesyndicate.com. Thanks for pointing that out. So, and anybody who has just joined us, if you can't tell what we're doing, we're ranking the Elm Street movies, all 9 of them. And I think we're ready to move on to our number 6 pick. If you guys are ready.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? Well, it is this one.
This one.
Dream
Child.
This is the worst of the original series because, like I said earlier, it stops after 5. In my opinion, this is the worst of them. I still like it.
I'm the odd one out of the bunch. I like this one more than 4.
I think you do that for effect.
I don't.
I think you're like, I'm going to be the guy who likes this one the best.
I do. I like it more because of the context of the story. Like, I like the whole teenage pregnancy thing and like how more like it's grounded in reality more with like the context of what's going on in the movie, but just on a different level.
Let's face it, you like Super Freddy.
The problem with this movie was that, like you said, it's got this adult theme. It's a grown-up story, nightmare movie, but Freddy is not that scary in it. Like Freddy is full-on comic in this movie, cartoon. So like the movie's scarier when Freddy's not on camera, because when Freddy's on camera, he's riding skateboards and serving food for people. It's not fun. It's not scary. It's he's total cartoon in this movie, and like the makeup is just god awful in it too. But the thing I like, the reason I rank it as 5, I've learned to respect it because Stephen Hopkins is a hell of a visionary director. And I like his direction. I like his visual choices. They mentioned the gothic stuff. The gothic horror is really cool. And some of the shots and the art direction and things he chose to do in it, I really enjoy. Ultimately, though, like the ending, I think it's such a fall off from what we got in part 4 is really what it is. I think
it is.
1989 was such a bitch year for slasher movies because like they all just took this nosedive. You got Jason Takes Manhattan and Halloween 5 and Nightmare 5. They're all just like, I may be wrong, but but the thing about Nightmare 5 is I do like the visions, the visuals. I like the adult themes that it's dealing with and tackling. And at the time I didn't dislike it as much because, Mark was a lot like me. He was a comic book artist. He was a skateboarder. I did a little bit of skateboarding back then, but the whole comic book artist thing was cool to me. But in hindsight, I'm like, it's kind of silly, Freddy, Super Freddy, and all this. But it has enough. I love the opening. I absolutely love the opening where she's in the insane asylum and she's giving birth as Amanda.
Kind of reliving
Amanda's. Yeah, that's really cool and like just creepy where she's like in the shower and goes into this nasty place and Freddy crawls into his clothing at the cathedral and resurrects. It's a cool scene. And then and like the part where all the maniacs rip him apart is really cool. Where he's
Mhm.
stuck in there. So it's got a lot of I enjoy it more than the ones we've already mentioned. But it out of, like you said, out of the original 5, it's the least favorite of mine.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, there's the rest of them are really damn good movies. This one I saw on the drive-in in 1989 with a movie called Lockup. Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
They showed that, and then they showed this. I really loved it when I saw it. I mean, 88 and 89 were great years because we got, like you said, you got all the slashers coming out. You had some great movies. Then this one just kind of fell flat overall. I do love when he's reborn and he's disfigured, and the art. You're right. The art direction, Hopkins. Well, and he based Mark's character on himself too. I do believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, art direction's great. And we got a comment earlier about the film touching on suicide, teen drinking, teen pregnancy, abortion. Yeah, it's kind of a deep ass movie overall, but it's got to deal with some of the best. I mean, and I think a lot of these other nightmare movies are some of the best in horror, especially from their time. But it talks of Freddy really going for innocence, an unborn baby who knows no evil. That's how Freddy wins. But he had taken a butterfly effect style and began murdering unborn babies. Can you imagine the horror? Unborn babies.
I think the coolest thing about this movie is it ends with Kumo D shitting on LL Cool J. Such an odd choice. New Line picked a side and they didn't go with LL.
Yeah. Maybe not the right side.
Kumo D, totally. They're from the Wild Wild West.
You want me to get them? Well, I got them.
Get them.
My VHS had a Fat Boys video.
That was the Houdini video.
The Houdini. Which one had the Fat Boys video?
Part 4 was the Fat
Was it 4?
Fat Boys.
Okay,
Are you ready
Houdini
for Freddy?
video. Yeah, that was one of the best things. Well, in some people's opinions, it wasn't one of the best things. But yeah, Will Smith doing Nightmare on My Street. You had, of course, the Dokken video, the Vinnie Vincent song. So much Freddy was going around from 87 to 90 or so. And then, of course, the show that we won't mention. Anything else, Keith, you want to say about one of your favorites?
One of my favorites? It's not one of my favorites. I like it. I said I like it more
this
than
one probably
Dream
ranked
Master.
in this position because of you.
It is a number 5 for my list.
The dance scene is really cool. To turn into a motorcycle. That's a really cool.
This is one that I think deserves a extended cut, maybe a director's cut, because they cut Greta's deaths quite a bit.
As silly as they are, we still got to give it up that the Freddy movies had more imagination in them than the rest that were out there, and
by far.
And so you get sequences like Dan turning into a motorcycle. I mean, you're not going to get that in a fucking Jason movie.
I'll say that there's things I don't like in the movie. I mean, I don't like the whole like nun thing. It's just weird, especially at the end where she like finds her body and it just like disappears or something.
She thanks her.
It's so like soap opera-y at the end there and kind of stupid, but I love like child baby Freddy and I love all the kill sequences.
I swear at the end though, when he turns back into baby Freddy, you're a curse. Your birth was a curse in the whole of humanity. I swear you hear baby Freddy go, "Mom."
Well, see, that's the other thing. I like that scene where him and Alice are like stuck together and they're like fighting each other while they're trying to pull each other apart.
I think this is a movie of a lot of great moments. Also because that scene in the water when Yvonne jumps in the water and Freddy comes up and spit in the water and Alice just sticks that fucking pool thing through his fucking mouth. I love that shit,
one of my favorite shots in the movie is from that scene where he after they leave that room and Freddy starts going towards them and then he sees Amanda or he knows Amanda's out there and he stops and he kind of scratches the wall and goes like that and the door closes. He looks cool. It's a cool shot and
the look on his face is great too.
Yeah.
One of the best things about Freddy Krueger is he can be expressive more than Jason, more than Michael Myers, more than most masked killers. So moving on to number 5. If you guys are ready for 5. Yeah,
Yep.
we just did 5.
You just did 5. Yeah.
Yeah. This is usually placed
God,
higher.
this is
New
5.
Nightmare. What?
So low.
Well, I think there's a reason. We'll get to that in a moment. But this is a damn fine movie.
It was my first Nightmare movie.
This is not what I expected when I saw it, because I had to rent it because I wasn't sure. I was like, New Nightmare. I thought they were like making a new version of the original movie. So I waited. I wasn't happy about it. I was like, they killed Freddy. Freddy's dead. I'm telling you. And then they flip the whole thing on their head, literally. It's so great. And you get to see Wes Craven. That was great.
I remember watching this as a kid, and like I hadn't seen any of them, and I always watched this one, so I didn't understand like half of the meta stuff that was in it, like when Nancy and John Saxon are outside the house and they start calling each other by their real names and their character names. Like I didn't understand any of that shit. Like I knew who Freddy was, and that was it.
Yeah,
but I always liked it because when I was a kid, I connected to the kid that was in the movie, and it was super fun.
Yeah, this stings to have it this low, and this is where I put it on mine as well. And it used to always be at number 3 for me, but I always was conflicted with that. Like, arguably, this is the best made film in the franchise, and it is a damn good movie, and it's so ahead of its time. It's so intelligent. It's so unique. The reason it's at 5 for me is when I look back at it, we're talking about our rankings, not what we think is the best film. And this movie came out when I was a freshman in college, so it didn't have and doesn't have the nostalgia factor on me.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I saw the other movies as a kid, this one I was an adult, and while it was great, it just doesn't have, those movies just don't have the same effect on you that they do when you're a very impressionable age and you watch it repetitively, because I've watched the others more than this one, and I've watched this one, but it if someone said this is the best one, I wouldn't argue with them, because it is that good of a film. It's just so smart and clever. And I remember when I saw it with my buddies, and I think like 3 of my buddies, and I was the only one that liked it. But I was like, this is an amazing movie. This was so cool. And I loved the nods to the original film in it. I thought this is probably Heather Langenkamp's finest performance in her career.
Well, I mean, she did play Nancy Kerrigan once, and she was fantastic as Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, but this, as Nancy, she's just outstanding. Oh, she's playing Heather basically, but to see the whole idea that the filmmakers, the artists who made this, are being haunted by this kind of genie in a lamp entity who's stuck in the lamp, which is the Elm Street series, and needs out, was just such a clever thing. And also the movie itself is a response to how bad Freddy's Dead was, to the point where like Wes Craven was like, you fucked it up. I can't go from here, so I'm gonna do something new. And so thank you, Freddy's Dead, for doing what you did, because we got New Nightmare out of it.
Yeah, it's number 2 on my list.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie, and this seems to be a running thing. It's not very highly regarded among a lot of fans, but I think this is one of the best Elm Street movies, period, of the series. But where I ranked it, which is probably right around this area, I don't quite remember, is because of the enjoy. Like, it's not one of my favorites. It's a great movie, and it deserves to be one of the top 3 in my opinion. But because of how good of a movie it is, but it's also not one I go back to very often. I do enjoy it every time I see it. But.
Well, it's not like you're saying, it's not as fun as the other ones. It's not as like a popcorny flick. It's more of a think about it and serious tone.
I saw it when I was 14, and it wasn't what I wanted at that time. It wasn't.
It's more.
But like as I grew older, when I got my first box set and watched it again, I was like, man, this is actually a really fucking smart ass movie. Not a smart ass like my brother, my son.
Well, it's not a teenager movie either.
No,
at all. It's a film about adults, and
Yeah.
so it just has a completely different feeling. Again, it's not part of the Elm Street series, in my opinion. It's its own thing. It's a what if. I always use that Marvel comic thing. I dig it. I actually think it is. I think Wes brought back a scary Freddy. There's things in it I don't like in the third act, but that was really cool too. Just that whole change of scenery, like that whole gothic Greek looking other world dimension, whatever the hell it was. Yeah, I dig it. I love
Dream Demons for me.
a lot about it, but like you said, like I don't watch it a lot because it just doesn't have that nostalgic pull for me. Where if I watch Nightmare, I want to have that nostalgia. You know, I watch the films to feel like I did when I was 12, 13, 14 years old watching it.
I saw somebody ask how many kills were in New Nightmare. I think there's
4.
like 5. I was going to say 5 or 6.
It might be 5. The 2 effects guy, her husband,
the
Chuck and Larry,
babysitter.
what's their names? The husband,
babysitter,
and
a nurse, right?
Does the nurse get killed? Oh yeah,
I think there's a nurse that gets killed.
Is there a
And
nurse
does.
that gets killed?
I'm pretty sure.
Heather lays her out.
That's more than some of the other movies, though.
And I think
I think the average is like 3. The first movie has 3. Freddy's Dead has 3. So
Part 5 only had 3, right?
Yep. Yeah. Dan, Greta, and Mark.
And I love her husband's death scene.
Nightmare was never about death count or body count. It was never about that. It's about
messes with your brain a little bit. I think is what very cerebral in ways, and it's supposed to scare you. Not just it's not a body count movie. See 4 deaths. I am good. I just did a body count. It's on horrorcenter.com. Jesus. What's Seth got to say? Only negatives for me. The audio is really high in some spots. Are you talking about our show, or are you talking about? Because that just sounds like Keith's mic.
Audio just a bad audio mix on New Nightmare. Yeah.
There are 6 deaths in New Nightmare.
6?
6. Chuck, Terry, Chase Porter, Julie, the boy Rex. My boy Rex. So does it count?
The Rex doll. My boy Rex.
Freddy Krueger, the entity. So Freddy died.
No, we're talking about the kills from Freddy, though.
But the Rex doll dying is pretty impactful, though.
Inanimate objects count now.
It had an emotional attachment. Damn it.
Speaking of emotional attachments, number 4, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. This is the first one I ever saw. And we were able to have Mark Patton on the show to talk to us about this, and it may have enhanced my love of this movie. Talking to him and hearing some of his views of just about anything. I do love this movie. I watched it again the other night, and there's so many feels come up. This is my first horror movie I ever saw. This is what got me. This was the gateway drug. So, what do you guys think?
This is number 3 on my list, so I like it. I like that it's its own adventure. Like it's not. I mean, it is. That's the thing I hate. People say that it's not a part of the series, but it is.
Well, they didn't know what they had.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun. Like I love the fucking dad in the movie. He's the funnest thing.
I absolutely love Clu Gulager, and he reminds
me of my grandpa.
He reminds me of my dad. Like that was like that scene. Like I always
that
say,
boy needs a good kick in the ass, kick in the butt.
That scene where he's sitting there in the living room, and Mark's leaving. He goes, "Hey, did you get that room unpacked?" And he's like, "I'll do it later." So, right upstairs, right now, son.
Yep.
And he stomps up. Now I would have never stomped because my dad would have kicked my ass.
Right.
But like that reminds me of my dad. Like my dad dressed like that, had the glasses. Was like an old school disciplinary dad. He would always joke with me like, one of my jobs was bringing the garbage cans in. And if I didn't bring them in, he would just be like, what are them blue things sitting out there on the edge of the road? What are those? Instead of saying, go get the garbage can.
You're a smart ass.
So, and then the whole, I grew up in that era. Like, so my house probably looked a lot like that too. And my sister had a parakeet. So I knew that sound too, that chirping all the time. So that scene, and I remember I talked to Jack Shoulder about that when I met him. I didn't get to meet Clue till a couple of years ago, but when I met Jack, I first brought that up. I was like, he totally reminds me of my dad. And he goes, "That's who Clue was, though. Like that's Clue. Like he was, But I just love this movie. Like you, Ray. This was the first one I saw, and it's what introduced me to it. And it's just got so many great moments. The fact that people consider it one of the worst or the worst just dumbfounds me, because it's usually everybody's favorite look of Freddy.
It's mine. He
Actually,
looks amazing.
Seth just said that.
Christopher Young's score, as Seth just pointed out, is fucking phenomenal. It's one of the best scores in the series. It's creepy as shit. Like Clue Goodler is amazing. Mark Patton's performance in the movie is one of the most sincere and real and visceral, and just when he comes in. I agree.
One thing I want you guys to go back and do next time you watch it, pay attention to how expressive his face is in the scene where he and Lisa are. There's a lot of Lisas in these movies. You know what Anyway, him and Lisa are reading the diary, Nancy's diary. Watch his face. I never really paid that much attention to the look on his face, but he expresses so much and so little on his face when they're reading that diary. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that when he comes back and says, "I have blood on my hands." Last night he tried, like when he's confessing to Lisa. It is so strong of a performance. Like Mark was a very, very talented actor, and it's just a damn shame that, like, through homophobia and everything else, that we were robbed of a career that was, possibly could have given us a lot of stuff. And when I watched that, and again, even, like Kim Myers is great in it. Robert Russler, I've always liked Robert Russler. He's hilarious in this movie.
Yeah.
Especially
the lunch scene when he's shut up, Grady. And he's got his mouth full.
I just love that. Well, I can't. I'm grounded. I threw my grandmother down a flight of stairs. But like out of all that though, like is it Carrie, the other girl? Like she is so underwritten. It's pathetic. Like she basically every scene she's in is like, "Hey, where's Jesse? How's Jesse doing? Is Jesse okay?" That's all her purpose is in the whole movie. But I love Marshall Bell as a coach. Bell, yeah. He's great. I always liked him anyway.
Hello, dirtballs.
Freddy just as scary as fuck in this movie too, and like the whole. I mean, some of the moments, just like the opening bus scene, is incredible. the ripping your head open,
For the bird a goddamn cherry bomb.
Oh my god!
Leave gas pipe.
Clue Goodler, his dialogue. What that boy needs a good goddamn kick in the butt. That's what it is.
When he finds out that toaster's not plugged in, he's like, "It's not even fucking plugged in."
My favorite line, though.
And the mom's an enabler, by the way.
My
she
favorite
shakes
line
her head and agrees with him.
My favorite line about the bird scene, though, is completely it's that cheap bird seed you've been buying.
Yeah.
Say, if anybody's watching, if you haven't watched Scream Queens, you need to go watch it. It's on Shudder still, I believe.
Luke Hardiman asked what my favorite part from part 2 is, and I'm going to ask you guys also what your favorite part from part 2 is. Seth, if you're out there, answer. My favorite part, I'd have to think about. Probably the scene where Jesse, he goes downstairs, drops the milk or the orange juice. I think it's orange juice. And he sees Freddy kind of like behind him, but like I think like a reflection of him. And he goes outside. Does he go outside?
He goes out the back. Anyway, sees looks in the window.
The boiler turns on, and Freddy shows up, and then you get the you've got the body, I've got the brain. That scene's got to be one of the most iconic scenes, top 5 at least in the entire series. It's such a great fucking scene.
I'm not gonna. Probably what you're gonna say.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead because I don't want to take the whole thing.
Probably gonna be what I'm gonna say.
It's totally Freddy ripping out of
Jesse.
Yes.
Yep.
Is just still
absolutely
an incredible gimmick idea. Mark Sjostrom's execution of it is just phenomenal. That and people can hate on it all they want, but the pool party scene was just incredible when I saw it. Like again, this is the first one I saw, so the whole rule shit wasn't even in my head. And at the same time, to me, if I look at all the films, Freddy was always manipulating the real world, and
Yeah.
like in the first movie, he calls Nancy when she's awake, and his tongue comes out. In the third movie, his skeleton attacks Donald and Neil. So, like, where's
Some
your
Ray
bullshit
Harryhausen shit.
rules? Yeah, and I like the concept of a possession movie that they made it where he needs. I always saw part two as like Freddy. Nancy took away his power. Now he's like a genie. He's trapped in this house.
Mhm.
His soul is trapped there, and he needs to get out. And so the only way he can get out is going through this kid to seduce him and possess him and get him to kill for him. And I think it's a creepy, scary thing, and it has its cheesy 80s low budget stuff in it, but I also think it's closer to the original because of Jacques Haken's cinematography. Same cinematographer. You've got a lot of the same locations. It's the last Nightmare on Elm Street movie that completely really takes place in a real world. Because in the third movie and the fourth movie, the Straughns kind of gave it this kind of surreal nightmare world that we didn't get until Dream Warriors.
At the beginning of Freddy's Revenge, you get a great setup to show that this is fucking suburbia. I mean, the very first shot you see is the bus turning down the street, and it's just this wide shot of a fucking neighborhood, and you can tell this could be anywhere. That's one of the things I love about this one, and I saw this one before the first one, only by an hour and a half, mind you. But yeah, I agree. This is really the last one that is kind of realistic, if you will.
And the whole homophobia thing,
I never noticed it.
I was a 12-year-old boy, and all I saw was another young boy being terrified by something, and so that never registered. But at the same time, I think that's what makes it special, is that it dealt with that, and it challenged that. And
it was also different because it was a boy. Because all the Friday the 13th movies, it was a female. I couldn't relate to Nancy or Alice or any of the girls from Friday the 13th, except for Tommy Jarvis when he was a kid. But I could almost relate to Jesse in a way. I love Jesse. Jesse was one of those characters that I just absolutely loved, because I didn't think until I saw the 2010 Never Sleep Again, I had no idea this was the gayest horror movie ever, or whatever they said. I had no clue. I had no clue that Mark Patton was gay, honestly, either.
Yeah, the only thing I remember being the only inkling of homosexuality I felt in the movie, and it's like because Roman was on the show, that one of the directors of the film.
We're gonna have Roman back on too.
And Roman said, it was either Roman or Mark said that this movie, the reason a lot of straight people didn't pick up on it was because it's coded for gay people. Like there's things that gay people could pick up on.
I think Roman said that. Yeah.
So, but like the only thing I remember being out of the ordinary or in that realm as a 12-year-old was the whole S&M bar with Coach Schneider, and being in the leather and bringing Jesse back. Obviously, like even though I was an innocent kid at the time, like, this ain't good. You got him in the shower and he's getting all this like rope ready and jump ropes and stuff like ready. Like, what's he gonna do to Jesse? Like, I knew it wasn't. It was sexual. Even at that age, I knew it was something sexual.
I seriously, it just went over my head all my life until I saw the documentary. I'm like, oh my god! And it was like the glass shattered. I'm like, holy shit! And all those scenes started coming back. I'm like, oh my god! Well, that's why he's in his fucking underwear so much.
Didn't you ask your brother-in-law about it or something? He was like, "How did you not notice this?"
My brother, my little brother who's gay. Yeah, I asked him. I said that to him. And he's like, "You didn't know? Why do you think I watched it so much?" I'm like, "Oh, I had no idea." Just like they say, Friday the 13th Part 7 on the documentaries, Friday the 13th. I never thought anything of it. The Crystal Lake Memories. They call it.
And then because a lot of the actors are gay in it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because Nick, the lead male, I guess, other than
he should have
openly gay.
Yeah, he should have followed like Christopher Reeve. Every time I saw, I was like, this guy should be Superman.
So one other scene that I wanted to mention to ask you guys about, because we have not done a real nightmare show like where we sat down and kind of just dissected these movies, but that scene where Freddy were at Lisa's party where he comes out and he's attacking all the kids, that Seth eloquently put, "Help yourself, fucker," which is a great line, by the way. What do you think, Nate? Especially you, because you're no offense, Keith. You're the nightmare aficionado, if you will. But how do you feel about Freddy in the real world like that? Nancy did it, but it was a little bit different. She pulled him out where Jesse was possessed. But
Yeah.
like even I think Wes Craven said that he did not like that scene at all. You're all my children. Now I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well,
I love that scene.
Well, first of all, what if when Nancy pulled him out of the dream world, he's like in a blurred space of reality and in another realm, because she did pull him out. Like, how did he get back in? Like, maybe he is in a limbo area where he can cross through Jesse, and so he's using feeding off of Jesse's energy or something. Who knows? I don't know the answers on that. I just remember as a 12-year-old kid, that was fucking cool. Like when he jumps out, comes out of the ground,
fuck yeah,
and he
dude.
starts just killing kids there, just mayhem. And we've never seen anything like that in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I'm thankful we got it in at least one of them. And it's, again, I think Freddy's terrifying in the movie.
I love that one.
I
love that one kid. He's like, "Calm down, pal. It's okay."
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what Seth was saying. I just want to help yourself, fucker. Yeah, and I mean that one really dials up the body count, and you got to think that again, they didn't know what they were doing. There were really no rules. I mean, except for Freddy was in the dream, and they did something completely different. I think this movie has way more iconic moments than some of the other ones. You've got the body, I've got the brain. Freddy ripping out of somebody, literally, and then the "You Were All My Children Now" scene. I fucking love that. I'm sorry if you don't like that, and I would love to know why people don't like Part 2.
Yeah,
because Part 2 is a great horror movie. It's not just a great nightmare movie; it's a great horror movie.
Like I said, Wes Craven criticizing that scene. I mean, of course he did. He didn't make it. It's following his baby kind of thing. But at the same time, you can't hold those guys to Wes. As I was talking on another podcast on another show recently, only Wes really knows his rules, because he doesn't come out in Nightmare on Elm Street and say, "These are the rules. This. No one knows. Nancy doesn't understand what's. We don't know why and how and everything.
She only becomes the expert because she lived through it. She was the only one who make it through it.
But how are the writers writing? David Chaskin's supposed to know what the rules are. It's no, it's an open book. It's a fantasy. We can do a lot of cool things. We can do whatever we want. And why tether ourselves down? So Wes is the only one who could sit there and say, well, that's not what I had in mind. But if he didn't make that 100% clear in the first movie, what any rules are, then they don't hold weight. It's just what's right and wrong in Wes's head.
Yeah. Wes gives him shit anyways. It's just like that line he stuck in Scream.
Yeah.
First one's good. The rest of them are shit.
That's not true. That's not true. But yeah, I love Part 2. I wish I could rank it higher, but my very favorite is the next one. And if you all have been following the Horror Syndicate or me at all, you know which one I'm talking about. There you go. Dream Master. No, not my favorite. It's my go-to. This is the one I watched the most growing up. My favorite is my favorite horror movie, which is the first movie, but this is the one that I latched onto. I love to, believe it or not, 3 is not one of my favorites. This 1, 2, and 1 are my big favorites. 3 is anyway. Let's talk about Dream Master for a minute, and let's see what people think about its placing. The MTV Nightmare, yeah. That's pretty much it. He does put sunglasses on. It has a killer song by the Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
The whole soundtrack's awesome.
So, yeah, everything about it's awesome.
Yeah, the score and the needle drop stuff is.
This movie has some of the coolest scenes. You've got the Roach Motel. You've got that awesome cathedral at the end of the movie where the showdown with Alice and Freddy. You've got Alice absorbing everybody's powers. You got the passing from one Elm Street generation to the next. There's so many cool things. I mean, they were systematically killed off with Kincaid and Joey and Kristen, but come on, Alice is better.
Yeah, I mean, Nightmare 4. And Night Before is another one of those movies that is often called a terrible movie or one of the worst. For some reason. Rennie Harlan pulled off something really special, especially since they didn't really have a finished script and they were making a lot of shit up as they went because of the writer's strike. Nightmare 4 is one of it should come up in conversation when people are talking about special effect films of the 1980s because it had a who's who like dream team of effects people working on that movie, and like his resurrection and his death are two of the best fucking things I've seen in a horror movie.
His resurrection's amazing.
Well, I mean that's my favorite death in any villain in any movie ever is the souls ripping Freddy apart. It's such a great concept. Steve Johnson hit it out of the park. Him and his team doing that segment. Just the amount of work that went into that, like big giants and puppets and Robert himself and all these things that went into pulling that off.
Didn't they almost crush a lady with it?
Homage to that, by the way, with Freddy, and you got Chucky and Jason coming out of him. That's I wish I had that I could pull up and show everyone. It's so cool. I have it somewhere in this house, but yeah. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry about that.
I was say, didn't they almost crush a lady with the big?
Yeah, she was on top holding it. They had one tiny little Asian lady, and like it tumbled down because they were pushing out. You know, Linnea Quigley was in there too, and she just comes tumbling. They have the video of it on the documentary.
Yeah. I remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah. You're right though, man. The talent, everybody was there. John Carl Buechler was there. K&B was there. You know, Screaming Mad George. So many. And Freddy did. In my opinion, this is the best look for Freddy.
Yeah,
I like part 2 a lot, but he looked awesome in this movie.
Yeah, Yeager took the best of part 2 and 3 and put it into 4. And Freddy, it's like I talked to Howard Berger when I met him at Horror Hound, and this is what I talked about. Out of all the stuff that like Howard bought, he bought like all my Quentin Tarantino stuff because he's worked on like pretty much all of Quentin's movies from Reservoir Dogs on. Which I'm a big Tarantino fan. But when I talked about it, I think he kept trying to like push it towards Kevin because I said Freddy never looked better than he did in part 4, and Berger was the one who took over application because I think Kevin was making Child's Play or Child's Play. He was working on something else at the time, so Berger took over application on Robert in that movie, and I just said no matter what. I've seen like behind the scenes shots of Robert in the makeup in part 4. I've seen promo photos. And that a lot of times the makeup on those movies, they only look good with a certain lighting. You have to light them right. But I was like, I've seen him in bright sun day, like behind the scenes shots, and he still looks fantastic. The application, the paint job, everything is perfect. And he kept going, "Oh, that's all Kevin. That's all Kevin." I was like, "No, he just looks so much better." And he goes, "Okay, I accept." He was so humble about it. He goes, "Well, it's only just three colors." Or something. He just kept kind of downplaying it. But I said, "Dude, he goes, he just looks phenomenal in that movie." He goes, "Well, okay, thank you." But
he's like, "Shut up, go away."
No, he was at my booth, so I wasn't going. But
I would love to. I would love to sit in on that conversation. That's when I think of Freddy. That's the one I think of from the part 4.
The glove, I love the fucking glove in part 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, his look. I'm always torn between that. I mean, because the first 4 movies, he looks great in all 4 of those movies.
Mm-hmm.
He never looked better than those first 4 movies. Part 1's makeup, I love the makeup, but in bright light, it doesn't look as good. It looks very much like a makeup.
Yeah.
Kevin Yeager's makeup was definitely superior to David Miller's. But I like the rawness of David Miller's, like burnt ear and the big gash, like the layering, because he put 2 layers. He kind of almost like a spider webbing, where it's like the scars are laid and then the other part over it. So you got those big burnt like pizza pepperoni pieces, like you said, it was based on a
that's what he said. He was playing with his pizza one day.
Yeah, so I like the part 1 for its rawness and the baggy sweater and the really fucked up fedora. It's like kind of falling down, and he's just like more of a dirty bum who crawled out of the how Wes really envisioned him. more so than the as Keith talked about last week, where everything's like tailor made for him, like everything.
Yeah, everything fits him.
Fits him better.
I always thought of it as him gaining more power throughout the movies. Like he was
make myself look nicer.
The first one, and he got more and more powerful.
Went and got a new sweater made. He's got more money now.
It's weaved out of dreams.
But the Part 4 movie, I mean, it's just all around. Like you said, it's a fun one. It was one I saw. My dad took me to see it. I've told the story, I think, on the show where my dad dropped me and my buddy off, and we couldn't get in because we were 12. And I had to call Dad, and he had to take us. And when I went and got my photo with the Dream Master cast, I had my dad come with me. I asked, hey, would you come and be in this photo with me? Because you took me to see that movie. And he said, what time, what place? I'll be there. So I've got a picture with him with the cast because he's the guy that took me there.
I think I've seen that picture, actually. Because I remember looking at it and like, who is that guy? I recognize everybody else here, but who's that? So that's your dad. Okay.
But what's funny about that picture is the way the photographer put us all in there. Like Brooke Burke is sitting in the middle, and we're all kind of hovered around her. Like she looks like she's the one who's the
big star.
The person get in the photo. Like we're all around her.
If anybody's watching, also, if you go back, we had a show with Lisa Wilcox. That's still up there. We talk about this movie in depth with her.
And
we're gonna probably try to get her back on for talk in depth on Dream Child at some point.
You can see Seth grinning his face off for the entire episode.
We talked about Dream Child a lot too on there.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I remember.
I blacked out for that entire episode.
And Alice Johnson is a really cool character, and her whole arc when she actually like puts on all the stuff, like her Rambo scene where she gets all dressed up and she goes in. Yeah, when she goes in, and like that whole fight sequence at the end is just epic. That set.
That's the best end of any of the movies.
Yeah, and then the set, I've always loved the boiler room set in that movie when Kristen faces off with him and he's got the chains and he's like taunting her. I love the light, the red and green lighting, and the chains hanging down. And
boy, that plane sounds close. Holy shit!
I can hear that.
Can you hear that? Wow,
yeah, it sounds like whistling.
That sounds really close. Whew. Sorry. Yeah, I agree with you. I love that set. That whole setup where Kristen's even beforehand when Joey and Kincaid are in there, the pipes are cold, the boiler's cold. I like that scene. And then when he's back, you could tell everything's changed, everything's wet looking. And I love when he throws her into the boiler or whatever it is, and you see Alice walking in, and the music changes. Like kind of like a hopeful sound.
Yeah.
And you get that iconic line, "The house sweet fresh meat." God, I fucking love it, man.
Kincaid's like, "Damn, this ain't my dream."
Yeah, that one has such a special. That's such a special part because it's like what I talk about with these new movies when people get mad about the new remakes or the new sequels or whatever, the new Halloween, the new Child's Play, new Candyman. Like, I discovered Nightmare that year that movie came out, but I saw 2 and 3. And so when I fell in love with those...
Wait, hold on. You saw 2 and 3. When did you go back to 1?
The same night I saw Part 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw part. So
you saw 2, 3, and 4, and then 1.
I saw 2, 3, and then
# fake fan. No, I'm just
joking. Yeah, I saw 2 and 3. Well, again, it was a different time. You couldn't watch any movie anytime. So 2 and 3, I saw those on when 3 debuted on cable. It was a double feature, and then I'm seeing TV spots for Part 4. So I'm like, oh, I get to see a new Nightmare movie. If there's one coming out, I get to go to the theater and see it. So to me, that's what's cool about these new movies is another generation gets to have that excitement of, oh, there's a new one. I get to go see my own Freddy Krueger movie, my own Halloween movie. And that's how, so I went and saw Part 4, and then that night we rented Part 1 and I watched it. So
what a great night.
Oh, it was a great day, yeah. And I also Ray, I discovered the X-Men on that night because I had never heard of the X-Men. And
Really?
the guy that I went and saw it with, I spent the night at his house. We rented Nightmare 1, and he brought out his X-Men comics, and that's like the first time I ever saw Wolverine and all this. I'm like,
Just fell in
what
love
is
with the
this?
guy's blade.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. It's all
Nathan
about
had
blades,
himself a
man.
cherry popping night.
That's
I
a great
even
episode.
remember the comic. It was the one Mark Silvestri did where Wolverine's got the Brood like taking him over, and he's on his hands and knees.
Oh yeah.
Or he's on his knees with with the whole Brood thing taking over, and yeah. So yeah, very special night. A whole day. I saw Nightmare 4 in the theater, part 1, and I did see one other.
The first one you saw in the theater was 4.
Part 4. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mine was the remake. Or Freddy vs. Jason, one of the two. I don't remember.
I remember wanting to see the remake in the theater, and then like 2 days after it came out, it just got blasted. I was like, maybe I shouldn't go see it. So I waited for the DVD came out. I was like, this isn't great. It's okay. But yeah, I love 4. I love everything about it. I love. I even like Tuesday Night. I know that she's not especially liked, but I like her. I love the opening song of the Tuesday Night Nightmare song, "Running from His Nightmare." I love that shit.
Love that song.
Rick. I love the cast. I love everything about it. There's not a single thing about this movie, well, except for Rick's death, maybe because the apparently the original death sounded way cooler.
Yeah, that's a terrible death, but Andrus is so great in the movie too. I just really like Rick a lot.
Me too.
He may be
the dynamic
my favorite
between
character.
Alice and her and Kristen.
Yeah, he might be my favorite character in the movie.
Well, he's a lot of fun. I mean, think about it. When Kristen dies, Alice is more broken up than he is, and she's focused on the Freddy stuff, and he's still trying to keep everything together. You got to love the scene where he and her he's teaching her how to fucking kick. I love that
Swish,
scene.
kill the fish.
Swish, kill the fish. Yeah, it's such a fun movie. It might be the MTV movie, but damn it, it's my favorite of the sequels for sure. I love a Dream Master. Yeah, that is a great Wolverine X-Men cover. Yeah, I think that's what they say. They ran out of money for Rick's death, and they gave him a cheap. And he says he did these bullshit John Wayne punches. He did not like that at all. Apparently,
it's like that's not karate.
Right? He's like, they set up all the karate stuff, so it makes sense that I guess a little bit. But like then he just throws these fucking big ass wind up punches, and how you gonna fight without your weapon, Freddy? Jesus. Sayonara, Rick-san. So we'll move on to number 2. I'm guessing. Can anybody guess what the number 2 movie is on our ranking list? Yeah, they did.
Really, it could be early. These top 2 could be like this with fans.
There are some people who say that this is their favorite, and that's fine. There's no wrong answer here. Dream Warriors is number 2. For me, there's something about Dream Warriors that I just don't like. Honestly, I like it. I do. I like it. It's the first one I ever saw in the theater. I'll tell the story real fast, as I've told a million times. I'm almost certain I was supposed to go. We lived in a town that had a 2-screen theater called the Laurie Theater, and I was supposed to go up there and meet my friends at 6 years old, mind you, to see. I think it was Crocodile Dundee 2. And I walked into a Nightmare on Elm Street because I saw the poster. I'm like, I want to watch that because I had just watched 2 and 1 on cable, and so I walked in and watched that, and I sat in the very back and just loved it. 6 years old, watched the whole thing, loved it. But like through the years, though, there's something about the movie that just I don't think it's as great as everybody said. It's like the final chapter to me. I think I like the more fun, Jason Lives versus the more serious final chapter. And I think it's almost the same thing with Dream Master and Dream Warriors.
I can see that. I think this might have been my second Nightmare movie. I don't remember when I saw the rest of them. I just remember this one being on Chiller all the time, or Sci-Fi, one of the two. And I always loved the puppet scene is probably my favorite thing in the whole movie.
That's one of the strong points of this one. It has so many great like death scenes. Like Phillips is probably the best. Again, I think that's one of the things I think A Nightmare on Elm Street has over Halloween and Friday the 13th are iconic moments. And again, it's because the villain can speak. Like, welcome to prime time, bitch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
This is the first one where the idea of manipulating who the victim is and playing with that was introduced, where Philip made puppets, so he turned him into a puppet, and Jennifer wanted to be on TV, so television kills her.
Yeah.
Those things hadn't been in part one.
A
and two,
beautiful
really.
woman with Joey.
Yeah, beautiful woman and Joey, and
Matter Joey.
Taryn and the hypodermic needles, and
Wizard
Will
Yep.
Will being the wizard master and all, like, and yeah, I mean, like I said, I saw part 2 and 3 in the first night at St. Back to back, and I loved both of them. But there's no doubt that Nightmare 3 was kind of the step up in budget and scale and size and imagination. Chuck Russell and the great Frank Darabont, co-writing this thing. I think the camaraderie, I think the idea of just warriors who have these special powers, and then you've got, like, arguably the greatest victim of all time, Kincaid. Ken Sago's just so lovable and likable, and some many great lines. Great, now it's my dick that's killing me. And then you get Nancy to come back being that maternal character now. She always was maternal in the first movie. She was, and this one, now she's been there. She's done that. When Freddy sees her and says "you," and oh my God, when they come face to face again, like. I think part of what maybe you don't like, and one of the things I think is Neil's not that great of a character or that interesting, so I never feel like I'm connected to him in the movie, and he is the lead character really in the movie outside of Kristen. But there's just so much, like, one of my favorite sequences in all this franchise is when they go to rescue Joey in hell, basically, in that boiler room.
Yeah.
And Freddy comes, you hear the scraping, and he comes around the corner with the doll in his hand. It's one of my favorite images in movies. Like, there's just something great about that image and that show off they have. And when he rips that sweater off and has the faces and the souls of my children, was introduced to that one. So that was one where, like, the effects and everything just kind of got pushed further, and just the creativity that it opened up that spilled over into part 4. Part 3 and part 4 are a great double feature for that, I think. They fit together well, and they're connected with Kristen and Kincaid and Joey, and a lot of people debate on, like, people like say they blame Dream Warrior for the turn, but I think 3 is the turn. 3 is where Freddy starts having a little more comedy and a little more fun, and a little more playfulness to it. Even though, but people love Dream Warrior so much they don't want to admit that. They don't. No, it's still scary.
I agree with
It's
that.
still good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think that's where the turn happened. Is really. I mean, Freddy was always humorous and having fun, but it was in part 3 where it became more of a pop culture guy than. I mean, part 4 is the way it was because of where Dream Warriors went. It wouldn't have been that way if
it was enhanced in part 4, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, well, it was right after. Maybe not right after, but I mean, I would assume they were planning on. No, not even. I would say Freddy started for me. I got my first Freddy toy after the 3rd movie came out.
That's when it took off. Part 3,
yeah, right.
Part 4. Like,
you start seeing them everywhere. I got a Freddy glove that plastic. The first one they released, it was like cheap plastic, and I got my first Freddy glove after the 3rd movie. You know, I
And
remember.
that's the one where
Is
you
it-
get like Dick Cavett and Zsa Zsa Gabor, and you get it's more he's falling more into the pop culture world, and this is following Jason Lives, which I've said Jason Lives was the turning point for slashers, where Dream Warriors may not have been as what it was if Jason Lives hadn't been the fun MTV movie that it was.
Mhm. I would say we called part 4 the MTV one, but I feel like 3 is also the MTV one because I mean just
No,
because
3
of
is the VHS or VHS VH1.
the VH1,
no.
just because of how the
That would be-
characters are, all the teenagers are more like back then. They're more hip and like with the now of how teenagers were then, instead of how Glenn and Nancy are in the first one and how Mark is in the second one. Like they're on the cooler side instead of the preppy, pretty sad.
And this
That
one
makes sense.
feels, and when people talk about part 2, it doesn't feel like it fits the other ones. Like, well, this was the one that's really the most different because this is the one where we're not in high school, we're not in the suburbs, we're in a
Mhm.
mental institution the whole time. So it's nothing like the other movies.
Yeah, but it has Nancy, which automatically connects them. You know.
Yeah.
I like that there's a filler between the main part of the series, because from there on, they say that with 2 because 2 has no continuing characters other than Freddy. Although I always hope Jesse would come back at some point, but I guess
I
that'll
always
never-
like, we like to imagine that Jesse was the one who cut his eyelids off.
Oh
that,
yeah,
that,
yeah.
that Neil mentions that maybe he
Mhm.
was there, but Freddie got to him.
God, that takes me back to Wes Craven. One of the scenes he wrote for New Nightmare with Michael Berryman driving him around, and he cut his eyelids off because he was typing the script. You ever hear that?
Yeah.
That was a deleted scene.
What do you think would happen if Jesse had found his way into the Dream Warriors film, like kids, that he was in that hospital? Do you think people still feel that way about part 2, that it doesn't fit, doesn't connect?
I don't think they would. I feel like it would make 2 even more popular. Just because it's a continuation character, you're getting to know the character more.
That's something that I think a lot of people really enjoy is a continuing story, a continuation, and having Jesse, even mentioned like by name would probably be enough, to solidify its place. I think Keith's right. I think it would make it better and more accepted among fans. It may be the 3rd movie on the list. Man. Yeah, I do like Dream Warriors.
It's
Don't get
been
me wrong. I just want to make sure people know I do like it. It's definitely not my favorite. So
it's always been my number 2. It's
Yeah.
always been my number 2.
It definitely is a number 2.
If there's any kind of wear and tear on it, it is because I saw it so much, and because it is like we've talked about, when people think about Freddy, they think about part 3 and 4, I think, or the part 3 Freddy probably more than anything. But I can't deny how epic that movie was, and how exciting it was, and it's nostalgia. But I think some of the things I don't care for. Again, I don't love Neil, and I don't really love the score in that one.
I don't either.
We haven't mentioned Lawrence Fishburne, who I love as Max in the film.
I don't.
The nurse gets a bad rap, but really, realistically, I'm like, she's just trying to save people's lives. She doesn't believe in this. Like, she's a science person.
She's the only one that's like grounded in reality.
Yeah,
like even Neil like starts believing. Well, he sees it.
Yeah.
She's the only one who's like, these people are fucking lunatics.
Yeah, I don't think she has the kid. She has the kid's best interest in mind. She's not out to hurt anybody. She's actually trying to save these kids. So
no, but some people look at her as a secondary villain.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. That we're looking at it from the fantasy world
Listen, that's Sue Snell's mom. She's not a bad person. So
I will say something I'm not a big fan of in this movie is the Freddy at the end, like the him just like spinning and turning into a light or something. It just looks fucking weird.
That is cool. You didn't like that?
No.
I love that. Well, I mean, he's Neil's putting the cross on the forehead. He's throwing holy water, and that's what that is. It's the light of God or whatever is burning through it.
And
I like the best part of the movie is the end with Freddie and Nancy, in my opinion. One of the best things about this is a group effort. The Dream Warriors, it delivered, because you had all these different people with their dream personas, and then you got a group going after Freddy rather than just the one-on-one, which you see most of the time, So that was really cool to see. It's like almost like the X-Men going versus Freddy in a way, in the dreams anyway.
And then also Nancy's dad showing up is kind of, I don't know, it works, but it also almost has that same effect of like New Nightmare does, that like this guy's just here.
Crossed over. Well, that's that's Freddy controlling the dream.
So
right?
weird. I didn't think that was the dream part.
Yeah, and
I thought that was actually him.
That image of him holding her down. Yeah. You're mine now, little piggy. Up, stabbing him.
Yeah, that's together forever.
And then like the other little images, like the tricycle became part of the nightmare lore.
Mm-hmm.
The paper mache house. Yeah, the paper mache house.
Oh yeah. Where's yours? Oh wait, you're in a car.
I'm in the bus.
Just pulls it out from behind.
Like I love the scene where it goes back to Kristen's house and her mom gets beheaded and she comes, you should listen to your mother. And it's just a great little moment.
Listen to your mother.
Where's the fucking bourbon?
I said, where's the fucking bourbon? I love that. That's so good. And then
everything like
yells like,
and I was like, I love the transition too of Dick Cavett. Like, let me ask you another question. Who gives a fuck what you think?
Who gives a fuck what you think? I think the best part about that to me is Zsa Zsa Gabor's reaction. Can I ask you? Certainly. I love that.
You gotta work, and then maybe.
You think somebody should take it?
You said study and work.
Yes. Dick Cavett kind of looks like he could have been Freddy.
I bet fans like he could play him. He could play him. Look, he did a little bit of it.
I mean, no, only Robert can play him. No. And only Robert can stop forest fires.
No, Gary Busey.
Yeah, Gary Busey. What's the word on the Gary Busey Freddy? Still looking for that.
It's almost a done deal.
All right. Anything else on Dream Warriors before we move on to the number one, which if you haven't guessed by now. Can anybody guess what number one is?
By the way, number one was unanimous. Everybody put it at number one in the group.
Oh, I do want to say we also had a show with Kincaid. That's also on this channel somewhere.
Yeah, it's on the YouTube channel. Kinsegos. Nightmare on Elm Street, number one. Go figure. It should be at number one. I know. Have a nice stroll, asshole. Yes. Kincaid had the best lines in that movie.
Yeah. That right, Cool Breeze?
Yeah.
Now I got to look at your ugly face.
Hey, cool guy, you pussy.
That, you know what? I had him sign my photo when I met Ken.
So he's like, you sure you want that?
Sure you want that? Yeah. It's like, yeah, I want that. That's the best part. And that's exactly what you're saying in this scene. So, yeah, he was great, man. I love having him on. We need to get some more Nightmare guests. Just round it out.
I knew he was a little pussy.
All right. So, Nightmare on Elm Street's number one. Go figure. This is straight up my number one favorite horror film of all time. I got lucky the night that HBO premiered Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. They showed this right after, and I got a full night of Freddy when I was 6 years old.
Some weird programming.
Awesome programming.
Let's put one after two.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't know why. My mom, I remember, she was excited. She's like, "Oh, the new Nightmare movie or the new Nightmare on Elm Street movie is coming on." And then they're going to show the first one. We're going to sit down and watch it. And she was asleep by the middle of the second movie, or, which was the first movie. And so I had to watch it by myself while she was sleeping. What's that?
just because it was premiere, they had like they were showing that like
Yeah.
8 o'clock probably.
They showed it. Yeah, well, yeah, 7 o'clock here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they showed that. And
7 o'clock.
Nightmare on Elm Street came on, and Death Wish 3 or some shit came on after that. I'm not even joking. I think it was one of the Death Wish movies came on after that. I watched that too. So my mom was just snoring, in Freddy Dreamland, and I was watching these movies I shouldn't be watching. So
I have no recollection of the first time I watched this movie. I watched it at some point, and I don't remember when that was.
the thing that I remember the most about watching this movie is, first of all, was Nancy setting up all the booby traps. I'll never forget how cool I thought that was. And I thought about afterwards, my house, how I would do the same thing. I had one of these houses that had 2 ways to get downstairs from the top floor. And I always thought, well, I would set up the main steps to do the booby traps on and then go down the other steps. So, yeah, I thought like that. And then the one thing that scared me the most out of the entire 2 movies when I watched them was when Nancy wakes up or thinks she wakes up after trying to pull Freddy back at the end of the movie, and he jumps out from the side of the bed. That I'll never forget. I jumped so fucking high. I think I was standing. By the time I'll never forget that. Great moment for my horror life.
Yeah, this movie, just this whole franchise, like I was 12 when I saw it, but I was aware of it in 1984. I was 8, and I remember the TV spots coming on. First of all, what a fucking title, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like it's just great title. It's not a holiday. It's not a Nightmare on Elm Street. It's Americana. It just works so well. But I remember seeing the trailer or the TV spots in 1984, and I mentioned it when we did the commentary where she goes up the stairs and goes through the stairs, like her feet sink in, like that. For some reason, bothered me more. That's one I vividly remember. And then I remember my dad coming down for breakfast one day when I was probably 10 or 9 or 10, and saying that he had stayed up and watched Nightmare on Elm Street that night before, and how he had a nightmare. And he was like, yeah, I came back here in the kitchen door and his claw came through the door and stabbed me in the stomach. And I'm like, that gave my dad a nightmare? I'm not watching that, because I wasn't a horror guy. And then I went to like the video store, and I would always see that part 2 cover where he's coming around the corner and Freddy's face. And I'm like,
the old VHS cover,
yeah. I was like, no, I don't want none of that either. And then, I think just because of the part 3 transition to more pop culture, and Freddy started having toys and shit, and the Dream Warriors music video, I watched MTV all the time. And then in '87, I think '87, Fresh Prince print out, the album came out with Nightmare on My Street came out.
Yeah.
And and if you're listening to My Nightmare, he's mentioned in part 2, part 1, he's talking about Nancy, and you've got the body, I've got the brains, like an amalgamation. I think that's what sparked my interest. I just started seeing Nightmare a lot and hearing about it and music, and so my dad and I had watched Return of the Living Dead one night together, and we had a blast with it. So I think I was opening up to things, and so I just went to Mom and said, I want to watch these movies, and 2 and 3 were coming on, and that's why I watched them. But
you had to build up to it.
Yeah, I had to build up to it because I remember like I was there and I was aware when they came out. I was 8 years old, and just they were there. I knew of them, and I was too chicken to watch them. But Nightmare 1,
Nathan, pussy.
Hey! Tight. But it was it's just we've talked about Seth, and I talked about that. Seth's a Halloween fan, and I'm a Halloween fan. He totally said on the last episode or the one before that Nightmare just is beyond it. It just has this the imagination, the idea, the creativity in Nightmare on Elm Street was just it shouldn't be. He even said that it shouldn't be lumped in with slashers because it's more. It's something
I don't think
special.
So either.
There's just something about.
I think the '80s decade is why it's lumped in there. Honestly.
Yeah, the whole, not just the uniqueness of Freddy Krueger himself and the way he looks. Well, how does that work? a guy with a red and green striped sweater. How does that work? It's terrifying. But the glove, all the elements came together. The burns, the glove, the sweater, the fedora, Robert Englund in that part, the backstory, the boiler room. He's got his own like
layer,
and like all these, and then the history and like the whole. It's not just I was wronged or I became. It's like no, he was burned to death. He was lynched, and he's getting revenge beyond death. He's a ghost. And he could do these amazing things. He could be transformed. He can grow his arms. He could all these imaginary.
He can do
things.
He's almost omnipotent in the dream world,
Yeah, and he can speak. He can vocalize.
Right. Yes.
He can laugh at you and taunt you and.
Or run down an alley chasing you, giggling.
Yeah.
God.
And then you get this amazing hero out of Nancy Thompson, who is Nancy Drew. She's like trying to find out what's going on and trying to convince people who won't listen to her.
As soon as Tina dies, she turns it on, man.
Yeah. She's like, I know something's wrong. Like this, Tina was telling me about this, and she was terrified. Like, I believe her. I believe her. No one else believes her. She died because no one believed her, and I don't want that to happen to me or Glenn or Rod or Mom or Dad or whoever this boogeyman comes after. And we see an character who faces, as Marge says, you face things. That's your strength. That's your power. And the whole metaphor of facing your bullies, it's taking your bullies' power away from them, turning your back on them, as Glenn tells her, you take away their powers and they go away, And so the music, so much of this film is just, I just love it to death. It's always like, I love Halloween. Those two kind of fight with each other, but when I really look at it, I have to decide Nightmare goes above it to me. Just because of that imagination, that creativity. The complexity of Wes Craven's,
creativity, complexity. I feel like Nightmare is the first movie anyway, is on a whole different level than most horror, especially of its time, because of the slasher boom, and that's why it gets lumped in there. Is because it's right around the second boom of the slasher era, in '84. But it's not.
The same way that Hellraiser. The same way that Hellraiser does. Hellraiser doesn't belong in the slasher genre, but it gets lumped in there.
Not even close. Well, I guess Uncle Frank and Julia kill a bunch of people, kind of slasher-esque, but it's not. And then that's another thing. Hellraiser. We're not talking about that, but I do want to mention that's another one that is just creative and just everything we just said about Elm Street. Hellraiser's right there. Those two are the most unique horror movies I think I've ever seen.
You look at all the other slasher movies, they're just carbon copies of Halloween in some way. But this movie isn't. This movie does not mimic Halloween really in the slightest.
Not at all. It's its own thing. I mean, every slasher, if you think about it, from Halloween on through the 80s, is just another. It's like a carbon copy. Carbon copies. You get less and less quality of what the first copy is, or what the first original is, and that's what most slashers are. They're just doing the same shit, just different people for the most part, finding different ways to put somebody in a mask. And Nightmare did not do that. Even the sequels didn't do that. What's the matter? Somebody get in the car, in the bus?
Got visit? Huh?
Did you get lost?
I got lost. Where's the rallies?
I told you. I was like, people are gonna be like, "Where the hell's Nate?" It's like, there's glowing coming from the car.
Oh, my dog's here to see me. Hey, you getting in the back?
Keith, you got anything you want to say about the first movie?
I mean, you guys have pretty much said all of it. I mean, we talked about it a lot on the commentary, but I mean, you've got the beginnings of so many people. I mean, it's not the beginning of Wes, but it definitely put Wes farther on the map than the rest of his movies. And then you've got Johnny Depp beginning of his career. I mean, just and then Robert Englund, of course, which I don't. It would be so weird to think about, like, if somebody else got hired and it wasn't Robert Englund. Like, would the movie
Well, they did part
even
2 originally.
like would it even have done what it did?
Well, that's a good point. That's a really good point. If anybody else, because they originally hired David Warner, I think, was his name, or they wanted him. What's that?
They never did.
Well, I know, but they wanted him, right?
I don't know. No, I don't know where that myth came from, but
it's not a myth. It was on the documentary.
I know it was, but like Tommy, who made the documentary, when he wrote the book that I did, like we did later, they actually went, because that was just some kind of mythology thing, and it was, but he went and he asked Wes about it. He asked Robert Shea about it, and he actually contacted David Warner about it, because he contacted everybody from that first movie. He even contacted like Charlie Sheen, because Charlie Sheen was supposed to be like audition for Glenn and all that.
Yep.
But like he talked to Wes, he talked to Bob Shea, and Bob's like, I don't remember that. I don't remember anyone ever talking about David Warner. And then David Warner said, no. He goes, I don't know where that came from. I've been told that, or I asked about that. He goes, but unless my agents were contacted and they didn't tell me, which would be very unethical.
He's like, fuck.
He's like, no one ever talked to me about Nightmare on Elm Street. And he said, in fact, at my point in my career at that time, I wouldn't have been interested. He goes, I wouldn't have taken it. It wasn't a part I would have been interested in. And then Wes said, he goes, I don't know what. He goes, David Warner is Freddy? He said, no. He said, I even worked with David on Scream 3. And I love David, but never. He said never Freddy Krueger. I would have never cast him. But what's funny is, like, if you watch that, like, it was in that. There's a book that came out in the mid-90s called "The Nightmare Isn't Over" or something like that. I've got it. I can't remember the title. I always forget it. But it's a retrospective on the series, like Never Hike Alone, Camp Crystal Lake or whatever.
Yeah.
Memories. But it's in there. It has photos of the David Warner Freddy makeup, and here's David Warner in his makeup, and in Never Sleep Again, the book that Tommy put out a couple years ago. Those images are in there, but they're not cropped. They're busts. They're not a person in makeup. They're just busts of or other options of Robert's makeup, and. It was, and like some of the makeup, because, David Miller did all kinds of concepts for Freddy. He wanted them older. He wanted them all this. And even some of the unused concepts in Nightmare were used in Night of the Comet the same year, because David did makeup on Night of the Comet. So if you see like the cop zombie in Night of the Comet, that was an early Freddy makeup, or a thrown away Freddy makeup that they didn't use. But like the whole David Warner, like, it got nipped in the bud and Never Sleeping Again, because Tommy went and talked directly to those guys. And some people say, well, I think it was David Miller in the documentary who said it was David Warner and that he had done makeup for David or something. I don't know how that happened, but Wes and Bob and David himself said he was never cast or up for it. So I don't know. Who knows? Somebody could be just kind of. But why would they lie? Why would they deny that?
And go as far as putting pictures in a book saying, like, these are makeup options.
Why did Robert audition for Freddy? Like, what propelled him to take on that role? Because he was doing a lot of sidekick, small role, snarky hero stuff. Yeah. I mean, Robert was just still a working actor. I mean, he needed work. I mean,
wasn't he like living with Mark Hamill at the time or something? Or no, that was the other way around.
I don't know if he still was then, but yeah, him and Mark were all like roommates back in the pre-Star Wars day.
Yeah,
but
I think
like
Mark
Robert
read the script for Star Wars while he was living with Robert or something like that.
I mean, Robert was just a working actor. He wasn't a movie star or anything. He'd gotten a V. He got a bit. V had been his biggest deal, and that was a miniseries. It wasn't like a television show or it didn't like. I mean, this was just another audition for Robert. Really, I mean, like people don't think about that. Like these actors, they go on audition after audition after audition after audition because they just got to work because that's your meal ticket, man. That's you go from job. As I talked about on another podcast, as an artist, you're always unemployed because it's always looking for that next job. Because once you've done that job, you're done. Now you got to find another job, and that's what if you're not a movie star and people aren't throwing scripts at you and throwing money at you, then you just got to get out there and hustle and try to get more jobs. So Robert was not in a part where he could just like turn people down all the time. You know, he had to still chase the jobs probably.
And you found the golden egg.
Yeah.
Found the golden glove.
That he'd be asked about for the rest of his life every day. Are you going to do it again? You got to do it again?
Yeah. And then there's also the people who are saying that Robert's the only one who can do it. You know, we've seen other people do it. We've seen Phantoms, and Jackie Earl Haley. I mean, we've seen fucking Kelly Leak play Freddy, okay? Kelly Leak played Freddy.
And then misinterpreting 5 words that he said, not the rest of his words. I've got one more in me, but they don't want one more. They want a franchise.
Yeah, it just drives me nuts every time. Oh, he said he's got one more in him. Did you hear the rest of the paragraph?
Here's the thing. I would like to see Robert come back for one more, but here's what I want to see a franchise at the same time. But there's a way to do it. And the way to do it, in my opinion, is have him come back and morph into another form, and there's the new actor.
Well, see, that's what I want. I want him to pass the torch and do a part 2 where he possesses somebody.
Well, not possesses, but like in the Dreamland, he morphs into a different look just because Freddy can do that. He can change, his appearance. Obviously, we've seen him turn into a penis monster. So
yeah, people would be pissed about it regardless.
Well, people are going to be pissed regardless anyway.
Well, they're going to have something to bitch about because, like, when he did the Goldbergs.
Yeah.
People immediately said, "Why does he look old?" Because he is old. Like, why does he look old? Why does he look
70
heavy?
years old, I think, isn't he?
Why does he look heavier? Because he is heavier. He's older. He's not 30 years old. He's like, people want everything to stay the same, and it's like, so even if you, and I think to me that's the reality of it, is if Robert did do another one, there would still be, it sucked, it's terrible. There would still be
Freddy's dead.
There would be just a bunch of backlash, and it's not the same. It's not the same because it can never be the same because you are different and Robert's different and everything's different. So give up on it. I mean, to me, I would still be excited the same way that like Indiana Jones. When I saw part 4 and I saw Harrison Ford put that hat on, I'm like, great. I'm all here because it's fucking Indiana Jones. Yep. But like some people are like, that movie sucked. It wasn't the same. It was like, okay, but still it's Indiana Jones. So I would still be that way.
I'm sorry. Don't get me started on Indiana Jones. I love that movie. I love that movie. I love all 4 of them. I do.
Right. They wouldn't say it's as bad as Freddy's Dead. They would say the remake was better.
That'd be funny. Come on. Anyway,
it's funny. Earlier today, some guy on the Freddy group, some guy was kidding on the remake. He goes, "Great." He goes, I was wondering if I was going to see one of these posts today, because he goes, like every fucking day somebody has to talk about this movie negatively. Like no one, some people act like it's the first time anyone's mentioned. Hey, who else here doesn't like the remake?
There's one group. There's a group of men. Literally, the past 2 weeks, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 keeps getting brought up, and I'm like, stop.
And the guy that wrote that is like, hey, I'm glad. I thought I wasn't going to see this post today, but thanks for posting it. I said, hey, did you hear today yet that Robert's the only Freddy Krueger?
Yeah.
Because that's said every fucking 5 minutes on there.
I think overall, the 2010 remake has grown on me quite a bit. I watch it at least once a year, and the more I watch, the more I like it. Reynolds, my son, who's 11, he likes it a lot, if that tells you anything. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's terrible. There are things I don't like about it, but overall, it's growing on me. I think, those posts are annoying. You know what? Anytime we post something about any, I'm going to ask our followers with a image post, what do you think of the 2010 Elm Street remake? And so, I can't wait to see what we get.
I've left every Freddy group. I hate to say it. I've left everyone because of that bullshit. Like,
That's the only Freddy group you need.
It's not even that I have a problem with it. It's like that's all they fucking talk about. All they ever bring up. And I'm like, you would post something important or thoughtful on there and it just goes ignored. It's all about who's better, Jackie Earl or Robert. It's like it's just the same shit over and over and over. It's like, aren't you tired of this by now? It's 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of it.
Shit, yeah, it has been 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah. All right, we do final thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, hold on. I'm posting this right now, Nate. I got to get this posted while we're live to see if we get any comments right away.
I'm trying to find rallies.
Are there rallies where you are?
No.
See, it's called Checkers where I am.
No, it's rallies in Louisville.
It's rallies here too. I love rallies. What are your thoughts on the 2010 Elm Street remake?
Also, where's Rallies?
Rallies is just Checkers.
No, I was telling Ray to add where's Rallies to the end of the post.
They'll be like, what the hell's Rallies? Or they won't
watch the show.
The Rallies.
Yeah. By the way, Rallies has some good motherfucking fries, okay? I love Rallies fries.
Pull that last comment up on the screen because that's exactly how it goes.
Only Robert England can play Freddy. Rover's England.
God damn it.
Yeah, so let's do some final thoughts. We'll start with Seth tonight. What are your final thoughts?
Oh, I'm Seth tonight.
No, I'm joking around. Seth's
put my finger up so I can talk.
Although, Seth, if you can comment your final thoughts, and I'll read them aloud for you. Keith, I didn't confuse you guys, okay? Having one of you is easier than having both of you in the same chat, okay? So what's that, Nate?
What? I was going to say, Seth, Jared, hope you guys feel better soon.
Yeah, I do too.
It sucks. I hope you guys are fine tomorrow.
Yeah, Seth and Jared are not with us tonight because they're not feeling great. I just don't think. I think Seth just didn't want to face the music about Freddy or Nightmare on Elm Street better than Halloween.
That's totally it.
Shots fired. Keith, go ahead with some final thoughts. On the entire series.
The entire series. Well, I would say like I always see the questions asked of like who's your favorite of like the icons, and I always look at it as like the movies and not the characters themselves. And Nightmare on Elm Street would be my favorite. Like it's the most coherent series. I mean, all the other ones like Halloween, they keep trying to add different things and then like change the origins. And Nightmare on Elm Street only did that one time, which was Freddy's Dead. Everything else is a coherent story, and then like we said, 3, 4, and 5, you have continuing characters throughout, and a lot of the other ones don't. Jason has Tommy. That's literally it, I think.
Listen,
but I mean,
Jason traveled all the way to Alice's house to take her out.
He got intelligent for one day.
Where did he find the dimes to use the payphone? Or did he break into someone else's house?
Also played by a woman, right? That opening scene
yep.
is a woman played.
Is it?
Yeah.
So far, I asked the question of our followers. It's only been a minute, but what are your thoughts on the 2010 Elm Street remake? We got a heart emoji. Nope, we got a heart emoji. Somebody loves it.
Oh, really?
I'm shook. No, I mean that would be my final statement. It's the most coherent series out of a lot of the slasher series. I mean, it follows its own path. We've got the same actor playing. Freddy's looks doesn't change enough to where you're like, what the fuck's going on with Freddy? Like he looks the same throughout the movies, as opposed to like Jason looks different every fucking movie, and then Michael's mask looks more and more Dollar Tree brand.
Laurie Strode's a slut. She got
True. True, but that's like family lineage moving through movies. This is actual characters moving through characters that you get to grow with, and they change. And
I'm disappointed in our followers. We got a positive comment on Nightmare on Elm Street. It says better than most make it out to be. Freddy was always meant to be a monster, a molester, monster molester. The only thing I didn't like were the number of jump scares. Okay, that's a positive comment. Nate, final thoughts on the Elm Street series?
They all have jump scares.
Yeah. I mentioned that somebody yesterday. I had a little thing on. Somebody had a meme that had the remake, and it said instead of calling it Nightmare on Elm Street, it should have been called Shitload of Jump Scares and something else. And I went on. There's a website if anybody's interested. It's called Where's the Jump, and it calculates how many jump scares are in movies, and it goes like from old movies to new movies. And I looked it up, and the original Nightmare on Elm Street has 11 jump scares. And the remake has 15. So that's not that big of a difference
Nope.
to shit all over the remake because of jump scares. Like the original had 11. Okay, so
I must be like immune to jump scares because I don't even remember the jump scares. I don't know.
Well, you mentioned one where he jumps up behind the bed.
Well, I mean in the remake.
In the remake, yeah. I mean the remake. The problem with the remake is when it does a jump scare, it's like it prematurely ends the scene. Like it's like the scene just started, all of a sudden Freddy just pops out and goes, and it's over. Like that.
Well,
scene.
I feel like the thing is people don't know how to determine a jump scare from just a shitty jump scare. Because there's like the jump scares that actually have potential behind them, like it's a monster or a character
Like,
or the killer doing it.
And the Sixth Sense, and the lady walks past. That's a good jump scare.
That is a good jump scare, but I'm talking about like the stupid ones where it's like just a friend that walks around a corner and the music intensifies, or it's a fucking cat or some stupid bullshit.
Yeah,
that's just like
13 Part 2.
those are faux jump scares. Is what I call them.
Yep. Scream 4. Seth has his final thoughts. If we want to. Final thoughts. I absolutely love this franchise. 1 through 4 and New Nightmare are great. I still enjoy all the movies and will always watch them all. There's not one I refuse to watch. These are creative, visually impressive movies with strong, likable characters. Why can't you say that when you're on the show? You're always so quiet.
Seth, you forgot to send a middle finger emoji before you talk.
Where's the middle finger? Go ahead, Nate. You ready for final thoughts?
I do my final thoughts. Of course, I love this series. It's one of the most influential on me. I fucking spent $1,000 making my homage to it. My only thing I will say is, please let us have more. Like, get past Robert. Like, when it comes to Robert Englund, look, I love that man. I cried when I met him. That's how much he meant to me. Like, I drove
when I met Nancy.
I drove 5.5 hours after being up for 30 hours, working the shift and everything. Drove 5 hours to Chicago, stood in line for another 5 hours just to meet him. I worship that guy. I paid $350 to get a picture of him in the makeup. You know, like, I love this man. But my thing is, when Freddy's Dead came out, I accepted that was it, because that's what they told us. That's it.
Yeah.
And when New Nightmare came out, I was like, oh my God, thank you. I got another Robert Englund Freddy Krueger movie. Great. This is so great. Loved it. Freddy vs. Jason came out. Hey, I didn't expect this. I got another Robert Englund Freddy Krueger movie. Thank you. Oh, they're not going to make a sequel? Well, that's probably it. Once this remake came out, that's it. It's done. They've moved on. I'm fine with that. The man's 72 years old. He doesn't want to go through it again. Even if, I mean, it's such a pain in the ass to wear that makeup.
Yeah.
Such a pain in the ass to wear that makeup. And he doesn't want to get up. No 72-year-old man wants to get up at 3 a.m. to get to the trailer to put the makeup on for 4 hours and sit on set under hot lights. When I saw him in Chicago in the makeup, he just like, he couldn't wait to take it out. He's just so itchy and it's hot and it's, you know, let him retire. Let him have his peace. Let him
paint. Obviously, he's a good painter from New Nightmare.
He wants to paint, for God's sake.
Yes.
And, you know, but the thing is, like he said, I enjoy playing guys in suits, which means I don't have to fucking show up early to get all that makeup on. I can put my suit on and I'm comfortable and I'm, you know, I take my suit off, I go home.
He's great in other roles. Look at him in Leslie Vernon. He was great.
I loved him in Leslie Vernon.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, just let him go. Please let him go and open up, because this character has so much potential. There's so many things that we could. I mean, we're getting Nightmare movies. We're going to get Jason movies as soon as this whole lawsuit's over. We're going to inevitably. It's going to happen.
I bet in the next 5 years we're going to have all three of them on the big screen together.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But Nightmare deserves to live on. Freddy Krueger deserves to live on. Mm-hmm. There's just so much potential. Again, there's so much creativity. It's not just a slasher movie. It is so much more than that. So, and I think Pinhead can live beyond Doug, and I think Freddy can live on beyond Robert. And I think this whole idea that no one can do it is ridiculous. And that to say somebody else can do it is not disrespecting Robert Englund. Because saying Christopher Lee was a good Dracula is not disrespecting Bela Lugosi, or Gary Oldman was a good Dracula is not disrespecting Christopher Lee or Bela Lugosi. We as Nightmare fans want more, and the next generation deserves their own Nightmare on Elm Street movie, because again, it's been 10 years. And also stop holding Platinum Dunes' failures on whoever takes it from now on. Like, anytime they make another remake, they go, "Oh, did you see the first time they remade it? That didn't work." Like, they is they. This is them. Like, it's a new team. You can't say, well, Mark Scorsese is going to make this. We'll see what Samuel Bayer did in 2010. Martin Scorsese is bound to do the same thing. It's like, no, this is Martin Scorsese. You know, like there are different levels of talent. And again, I mean, shitting on Bayer, because Bayer didn't want to do that movie in the first place.
Right.
Which is
but
stupid.
Who would you want to direct a Nightmare? The next Nightmare.
There's so many. Like, I've been saying for years, like Guillermo del Toro would make a great movie. He would be very
ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, like anybody who's great at visuals and imagine, like, just creatures and fantasy, because Nightmare is a fantasy movie as well. And I think James Wan would be fucking fantastic.
Oh my God, you kidding?
Yes.
The Conjuring movies, to me, are perfect. And then Carrie, who made It, would do a great job with Freddy. Mm-hmm. So there's so many people out there who could do it justice. And there's so many actors who could do the part justice. As a Nightmare fan, I want him to live on. We need to get past this only Robert thing. And that is not disrespecting Robert. I am thank you, Robert. Now let him retire. Let him
now come on the show.
Leave him the fuck alone. You know? And
you should make a video like that Britney Spears girl, whoever it was.
Leave Robert alone.
Now you know what the bad thing is, right? Robert's going to be in the new Stranger Things season. It's just going to amplify this.
Yeah. You know, Robert's he's a very talented actor. I think I keep going, because I want to say my piece.
Oh.
Was he frozen?
I think he froze.
Oh,
he's just very good at
holding. Did he finally find rallies? So we've got some positive comments on the Nightmare on Elm Street 2010 post, by the way. I hope, Nate, if you can hear me, I hope you go check those out, because there's only a couple bad ones. I agree. I'd like to see Nightmare come back. I have no idea who I'd want cast as Freddy, but I don't want another remake. I personally would like it to be a 30-year later or something like that from the last movie. So picking up the same type of town, same timeline, all that good stuff.
That's just do what they're doing with the new Candyman. It's a passing of the torch.
Like that would be cool. I do not want them to skip over a bunch of sequels, though.
Nope, we lost Nate.
I definitely don't want them to skip over a bunch of sequels like they did with the Halloween. But we'll see what happens. I bet it'll be remade. I bet Friday the 13th will be remade also.
I mean, if they continue, just go off 5, and it could be like her baby.
You know, he'd be like in his 30s now, but it could be his kids. Who knows? It could be all new kids, and they have to bring Alice in. You know, I'd love to see Lisa Wilcox return. I love A Nightmare on Elm Street. I love the series. There's not one, in my opinion, that is the worst. I love them all. I love Freddy's Dead. I just love it. I want to thank everybody for hanging out. All the comments we got. We got a lot of comments tonight. I really appreciate that. So many that I couldn't even keep up to read them. We need more of that. I don't know what our next show or when our next show will be. It's holiday time, Thanksgiving, so hope everybody has a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Seth and Jared, I hope you guys get better for the next show, whenever that may be. And we will see you at some points in the near future. Thanks, Andre. Thanks, Alex. You guys have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.